Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to what is undoubtedly the most important tier list Tuesday in my career, probably until the day I die. For the first time on a tier list Tuesday, I am not just talking on my own behalf. I am talking for 5 people. 5 different people share the opinion that I'm about to state. How is that possible? Well, this past weekend, I assembled a panel of movie experts to determine what is the greatest film of all time. Those experts range from former hosts of movie review podcasts, people with film degrees, people who went to Hollywood and did the whole film thing, and Dynamite. So we've got other content creators, we've got professionals, we've got people who just like movies, the whole spectrum. I'm not going to go into the specifics of who voted for what because it would just take too much time, but basically this video is going to be a sort of recreation of the bracket we did this past weekend and how the movies were discussed, how the movies were, the total number of votes the movies received, and of course ultimately deciding what is the greatest movie of all time. Before we get into it, I'm going to just run you through the nominees. The way it worked was it's a 32 movie bracket and there were 5 of us. So we each got to pick 6 movies that definitely got in. Each member of the panel, there were no rules on what your movie could be. It could be your personal favorite movie, it could be the movie you think has the best directing, the best acting. There was no rules. Each person brought 6 unique movies to the table, and then we used celebrity guests to, technically, we got 1 celebrity guest to submit 1 final movie, then we all agreed 1 other movie should be thrown in there, equaling a grand total of 32. So, I'm gonna run you through those movies right now. We've got Back to the Future, Silence of the Lambs, Whiplash, Princess Bride, Moana, Shawshank Redemption, The Thing, John Wick, North by Northwest, Psycho, Argo, Gremlins, American Beauty, Pirates of the Caribbean, Logan, Knives Out, Spider-Verse, Indiana Jones 1, Get Out, Rocky, Inglourious Bastards, Alien, No Country for Old Men, Jurassic Park, Jaws, The Graduate, Arrival, Empire Strikes Back, Spotlight, The Truman Show, Double Indemnity, and The Dark Knight. You may have heard of some of those, you may not have heard of some of those. This is the official bracket. The bracket is not seeded in any particular way. The way it was done was we threw all the movies into a hat, pulled them out of the hat, and this was the random order they were done in. I painstakingly made a bracket fights / tier maker account in order to perfectly recreate the bracket that we had this past weekend, and I'm now going to go matchup to matchup, share my thoughts on the movies briefly, the overall sentiment of the movies, and then let you guys know what the vote was, how long it took to come to that decision. And we're going to do that for every single matchup, all 31 matchups. So, I'm going to quickly pause here and change the setup because there's going to be a big thing that has one movie versus the other. So I'm going to shift my camera down to the corner after that long explanation, and we'll get into it. So I'll be back in 1 second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The first matchup of the greatest movie of all time tournament was Back to the Future versus Silence of the Lambs. Now, these are 2 wildly different movies. I don't need to say that. There was a whole lot of discussion of whether or not we should have done multiple greatest movie of all time tournaments focusing on genre, but the ultimate decision was if we did all these tournaments genre exclusives, we'd get to the point where we'd have 10, 20 greatest movies of all time, and then we'd be in this position anyway. How would we compare them? So we just broke every film down to its bare bones and ultimately all voted for what we thought was better. So, Back to the Future versus Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs one of the greatest thrillers of all time. Everyone knows Anthony Hopkins, probably one of his best roles. He won Best Actor, which, I mean, if you care about the Oscars, cool, but like they don't really matter. But still, he won Best Actor for the shortest amount of screen time in history for anyone to win that award. And on top of that, here's a little fun fact if you didn't know, his girlfriend at the time broke up with him because she couldn't separate him from Hannibal Lecter after seeing Silence of the Lambs. That's how good he did. People he literally knew were like, you're Hannibal Lecter, we're out. And of course, Jodie Foster's early in her career, but it was a great role for her as well, and it's a great movie. Back to the Future. What can you say about Back to the Future? It's one of the greatest time travel films of all time. You've got this quirky relationship between Marty McFly and Doc Brown. You have all these characters that are centralized around Marty McFly and helping him get back to the future. You got a lot of one-dimensional characters like Biff, but like they're one-dimensional in the best way. Like that is, he's a quintessential bully. The movie is a perfect love letter for the 50s and the 80s. And it's incredible. So after we discussed these two films for 7 minutes and 4 seconds, with a 3-2 vote, Back to the Future won and moved on in the tournament. Next up, we had Whiplash and The Princess Bride. Now I'll wear my heart on my sleeve here. I submitted The Princess Bride. It was one of my submissions because I think it is the greatest film of all time. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to spoil how far it gets into this bracket, but this was my personal pick. Like the one that I was like, I can see this one going all the way. So you got The Princess Bride, right? If you've seen The Princess Bride, you know it's the perfect adventure movie, the perfect romance movie, the perfect comedy movie. Got the greatest cast of characters maybe ever assembled. It does so many things, and it does them all well. It's got some of the best quotes a movie could have. It's got Andre the Giant. It's just like, I can't even go on about how good the movie is. It's got that storytelling, I don't want to say gimmick, but like, you know, that style of like, I'm telling you a story. The movie you're seeing is a story that's unfolding. And it's absolutely incredible. And then you got Whiplash. Whiplash is probably some of the best acting that's on the bracket. J.K. Simmons, it might be one of his most famous roles. Him as like this drumming coach who just blatantly tortures Miles Teller, and Miles Teller keeps persevering. He keeps trying. He gives up like loved ones. He ignores family. Gets into car accidents, all just to impress this one guy in this very abusive relationship. And ultimately, he doesn't really gain him anything. He gets like an amazing like chance to impress J.K. Simmons, but at the end of the day, he's injured, he's alone, and his whole life might be messed up. It's a very telling story with a great acting. But after exactly 7 minutes of discussion and another 2-3 vote, The Princess Bride is what moved on between these two films. Next up, we have Moana and The Shawshank Redemption. Now, I will reveal again that I put Moana on the list. You all know I love Moana. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm a big Disney princess guy, and it's my favorite Disney princess movie. We all agreed that it is the best Disney princess movie ever made, from the soundtrack to the strong empowerment of the characters to the not having any real problematic issues. It's incredible. I would even go as far as say it's maybe the best Disney movie of all time. I don't want to agree on that one. It's also got beautiful animation and everything. I put it in here because I thought the Disney princess genre was an important enough staple of the world, with enough of like a cult following of people that love it, that it needed representation in the greatest movie of all time tournament. And I picked Moana because, like I said, I think it's the best one. I was happy to have it be here. I was happy to have it get a moment in the sun where we could all discuss how good of a movie it was. But the issue that Moana faced in this tournament was it got first round paired up against The Shawshank Redemption. The Shawshank Redemption is one of those movies that everyone says might be the greatest movie of all time. It's an incredible narrative with a corrupt prison system, Morgan Freeman narrating, Tim Robbins is your lead actor, and it's about how if Tim Robbins, Andy Dufresne, can escape jail, not only is he saving himself, but he's fixing a corrupt system, and it's got just so many powerful moments in it. And as much as I love to talk about Moana, after merely 7 minutes, another 7 minutes, myself included, it was a 0 to 5 vote. I love Moana, but it was 5 for The Shawshank Redemption. It was kind of, the second the pair-up happened, you knew it was going to happen with this one. So The Shawshank Redemption moves on with a 5-0 vote. Next up was The Thing and Logan. This was one of the longest matchups of the entire tournament. We had a base rule that we would try to keep everything under 10 minutes because it was, you know, it was a long day. We had to discuss 32 movies. And if we hit 10 minutes, we then kind of entered like, okay, everyone get your last thoughts out and we're voting for sure at the 15-minute mark. This is the only movie that actually we had to stop someone in the middle of a sentence and say, we're hitting 15, we have to vote. The Thing might be one of the best horror movies of all time, along with some other ones on this list, but The Thing is so perfectly crafted from the sense of you're in a location that, like, you can't just run away. You can't just run away from the thing. You're in the Arctic. It's got that whole vibe of paranoia. You don't know who you can trust. You don't know what's going to happen next. It's a great film keeping you on the edge of your seat. And on top of that, you got Kurt Russell playing one of the most likable characters. You hope more than anything that he gets out of this horrible situation with this terrifying alien. And it's absolutely incredible. But then on the other side, you have Logan, which is basically a neo-Western film because it's an old man whose way of life is slowly falling to the side, which basically after the early Westerns is what every Western's about. You've got Logan, he's the Wolverine. He's one of the most prolific action hero, superhero, beloved characters ever in his, like, grandiose send-off. I consider it to be the greatest superhero film of all time, personally. Some other people in the panel agreed with me, some other didn't, but regardless, that's why it's here. It was not my submission, but me and one of the people talked about it, and he ended up submitting it. It's absolutely incredible. It's heart-wrenching. Every moment in that film really just gets you to its core, and it's one of those... There's very few sequels on this list, you're noticing, probably, because an issue with a movie sequel is sometimes they don't talk about who your characters are, you don't know who it is, and it's hard to say that a sequel can stand up on its own because maybe all the development happened one movie earlier, and you're just seeing like a fun, wacky second adventure. Logan is not one of those movies because you don't need to see X-Men Origins Wolverine. You don't need to see the Wolverine. You don't even need to see really the X-Men universe. People seeing this movie, they know who Wolverine is, and he shows that he has been through it all, and this is the end of his run. The second the movie starts, you don't need any of that pre-knowledge, which makes it absolutely incredible. It was the hardest matchup. Like I said, it went 15 full minutes, uninterrupted, cut off at the exact 15-minute mark. When it came down to a vote, I had no idea who people were going to vote for, but in the end, it ended up actually being a 4-1 vote in favor of The Thing. So The Thing moved on to the next round. Up next, we have two new movies, like new movies, like within the last 5 years. Knives Out and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I will let you guys know now that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was the movie that we had like a pool of 8 movies that we narrowed down to 2 to fill in those last 2 spots. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was one of those. It was in a big amalgamation of movies, and we agreed that it was good enough to make its way into the tournament, even though it's so new. It's one of the most impressively animated films of all time, and we're all superhero buffs here. Like, we were just talking about Logan, how I think that's one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. This is another one that's in that conversation. It's got so much good characters. I was gonna say characterization. So much good characters. So many good characters. So much good characterization. Sue me. Regardless, it's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely beautiful. And on top of that, the message is so good. It's got a message of it's got that classic Spider-Man message, anyone can be a hero. But with Miles Morales as the focus, who's who's black, it's absolutely incredible. It's like it's a new hero that young children can look up to and really be like, when you got the Japanese Spider-Man girl, Penny Parker, I believe her name is. You've got Spider-Gwen, a girl. You've got Spider-Man Noir, which shows all old-timey detectives. Even they could be Spider-Man. And nothing really is more necessary than reaching out to the old-timey detectives and letting them know that they can be Spider-Man. And pigs, man, pigs can be Spider-Man. It's like it's like a cute joke, but it's also like a really powerful message that like all you need is the drive. And it's so good. It's a beautiful movie. It does so much. But then you have Knives Out on the other hand. Knives Out, I think the newer of the two movies, I'm not sure, was so good. Knives Out is, if not the best whodunit ever made, in the discussion. There hasn't been modern whodunits in years, and Rian Johnson comes out and writes one of the most expertly crafted whodunit films of all time. I can't even think of another movie where 20 minutes in, they're like, here's who committed the crime. And you're like, okay, that's not actually who committed the crime. There's going to be a big twist. But then they spend like 15 minutes actually showing you that person committing the crime. And you're like, oh, damn. That person, I guess, just did it. We know that now. The movie's now about us seeing if they get away with it or not. But they still manage to twist you after that. After you think you know because you saw, they still twist you. It's so good. Daniel Craig's performance as LeBlanc was so good that it got Netflix bought the rights to the film and is doing a two more, like making it a trilogy. Don't know how it's gonna work. I'm assuming it's just gonna be Daniel Craig like being a detective in other crimes. It'd be weird to like, how would you continue these characters? The crime's over. And then of course, you got Ana de Armas, whom I absolutely love, killing the lead role. It's an absolutely great movie. If you're into mystery at all, I highly recommend it. And we were torn because you got probably undoubtedly the best Spider-Man movie and the best whodunit. Those are two very minor genres. Spider-Man arguably isn't even a genre, but like we had a bunch of Spider-Man dorks. It was important that it was the best Spider-Man movie. And the best whodunit, it was a tough matchup. Another one of those ones that really came down to the vote. But after 12 minutes of discussion, in a vote of 2-3, it was close, one vote swing, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse moved on to the next round. Next up, you got Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Get Out. These, again, are two polarizingly different films. You have Jordan Peele's magnum opus, Get Out, which redefined horror for a lot. It made like important, impactful art house horror really get thrust into the limelight, and also addressed obviously so many racial issues that now have become a real focus of movies as well, and it's good that's getting out there. And that movie, and you know, I mean, like, absolutely incredible. But then you got Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is like one of the best adventure movies of all time, with a defining character, a classic story from all the way back in the day that's still discussed like today. Like, will Get Out be discussed as vividly as Indiana Jones is discussed today? When it's that old, we don't know. But we had to compare them, obviously. That's the whole point. Was the whole point of the day. I think we all agree that Indiana Jones was like fun, but at the end of the day, after only 8 minutes and 50 seconds of discussion, it was a 2-3 vote. But Get Out ended up moving on because at the end of the day, this is like a cultural turning point in film. Indiana Jones is a spectacular action adventure flick, but it really was just a fun adventure. So Get Out moved on. Next up, you got Rocky and Inglourious Basterds. You're gonna hear me say it a lot, but what different films? You got probably the most prolific sports movie ever made, the most famous, versus one of the incredible Quentin Tarantino films. The man's he only got one film on this list. A lot of people, the way the lists worked was that everyone send me like 10 movies in order that you want them on the list, in case like Judge A and Judge B had the same third movie. I would just move one down someone's list to get another movie on there based on who submitted it first. A lot of people had Tarantino movies in that like reserve pool. Django, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and of course Inglourious Basterds were all among ones that in like a slightly different world made this list. But Inglourious Basterds is Quentin Tarantino's movie on the list. It's his incredible revisionist history where he takes like these stories that we think we know and just turns them on his head. What other movie can you see Hitler get blown up in a movie theater and just absolutely riddled with bullets? You can't. It's Inglourious Basterds. And on top of fun stuff like that, it's got one of the most powerful villains in Christoph Waltz. The first 10 minutes of this movie are insane. The tension of Christoph Waltz looking for people hiding Jews during this time is absolutely crazy. And then on the other hand, you got Sylvester Stallone writing, directing, starring in his own movie, Rocky, about an Italian immigrant who's gonna go on and do a boxing match and show that he's just as American as Apollo Creed. And Apollo Creed obviously is the Michigan the whole movie. And the movie makes the incredible decision to actually have Rocky lose in the end, but he wins because he proved his point. He didn't need to win the boxing match to show that he mattered. It was a fun matchup for sure. We had a lovely discussion, and 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Another 2 to 3 vote. That's the whole point of the 5-person panels. There were a lot of 2 to 3s. Inglourious Basterds moved on with 3 votes. This is the moment. Hey, look, follow Wonderberry HD on Twitter. I got 6 followers, guys. Let's get that a little higher. I don't tweet a lot. It's probably my own bad. So this is the movie on the list that y'all are probably like, if you guys are movie buffs and you're here, this is maybe the only one you've never heard of. Double Indemnity is an old school, I'm talking like 50s or 60s, whodunit, sorta, more like a crime thriller. And then of course you got Dark Knight, The Dark Knight. I'll talk about Double Indemnity for a little bit. Double Indemnity is really good if you're into film noir. It's like this, it's a classic femme fatale convinces our hero to commit some crimes, and all of a sudden we don't love him anymore. He's not our hero because he commits said crime, but we're still so attached to him we have to see, can he get away with it? All of it with the narrative of he's actually confessing over the phone. It's like a story he's telling right before he attempts his escape. It's absolutely incredible. It's a perfect film noir film. It's got so many classic like old school movie lines that you just don't hear anymore. The one me and my friend always talk about, who loves saying, he says, "The ball's in your court, doll. Now you just gotta see if you can run with it." Like, it's just, there's so many little things like that, but it's like every other sentence is that good. But alas, its competition was The Dark Knight. This is probably what the most people would call the greatest superhero movie of all time. We've talked about Spider-Verse, we've talked about Logan. Obviously everything's an opinion here, but this is the one that everyone goes to and they say, oh my god, what a well-made superhero movie. You've got a perfect justice versus chaos with the Joker and Batman. That opening scene perfectly establishes the Joker's character. You've got an incredible score, you've got an incredible list of characters, and honestly, to me, and we've covered a lot, the best part of the movie is like the Harvey Dent storyline about how how the Joker was right and that everyone's one bad day away from just flipping the coin, so to speak, and becoming the other side. It's so well made and it's so good. And Double Indemnity, while phenomenal, it just, like, you know, it's an old film. It holds up, but like, I mean, you're comparing Batman flipping a truck to this guy who like kind of commits a crime near a train. It was incredible. They're both incredible. I recommend them highly, but with a vote of 3-2 again, after only 8 minutes and 12 seconds, The Dark Knight moved on. We're gonna flip back up the top here. And do, oh, it wants me to do the whole left side before we do the whole right side? Can I fix that? Oh geez, I've messed up. Why would you do it like this? You want me to do the whole left side before we do the whole right side? Can I open this? If I click John Wick, it just moves on, huh? Can we, alright, give me a second to fix this, I guess. All right, it's not my decision, but I guess we're gonna do the whole left side and then the whole right side. It's just how it's gonna be, I guess. So, this isn't how we did it. We did all of round 1 and then all of round 2. We didn't do left side, right side. So we were a little more exhausted at this point. We had done the entire right side of the bracket, but in order for easy viewing for your guys' sake and having the big movies up on the screen so you know exactly what's being talked about, I'm going to do what the website wants me to do. So, this is now the start of round 2 for us. Back to the Future Princess Bride. We've talked about both of these movies already. We talked about them in a little more detail here. We all kind of agreed that the characters in the Princess Bride are just like way more developed than everyone that basically isn't Doc Brown or Marty McFly. All the other characters in this movie exist to serve Marty McFly's journey and get back to the future, which is not a problem, but with a movie that's got better characters and better comedy than a character-driven comedy, I mean, the only thing that this really has over it's the sci-fi elements now, the Princess Bride kind of got the nudge. So after only 5 minutes of discussing, the Princess Bride went over Back to the Future with a 4-1 vote. The Thing and The Shawshank Redemption. What a matchup. So hard to compare. Horror. Character-driven drama. They're complete opposites of one another. Comparing them was almost impossible, but we sat to do it. Took us, it was one of our longer rounds, 13 minutes of discussion. We all agreed that The Thing did horror perfectly, but most of the panel was like, listen, a perfectly driven horror movie with life and death stakes versus a character-driven narrative that still has life and death stakes, but then also has this whole prison reform undertone and impactful moments like when the older man leaves jail and the outside world's so different he kills himself. Like, there are just so many powerful moments that grip you even harder than a movie its goal is to grip you the whole time. So after 13 really tough minutes of discussion, it was another 4-1 vote, this time in favor of The Shawshank Redemption. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse versus Get Out. Another weird matchup for Get Out, but this time a little more comparable in the sense that we were now talking about what these films did for society. They both have a message of race and what happens with that in these contexts. But now we flipped our script a little bit. We already talked about how Spider-Man is a really hopeful, good movie for children to look up to as far as, like, oh, it doesn't matter what my race is, it doesn't matter who I am, I can be a hero. Whereas Get Out is kind of, its message is more so, the world is effed. This is how it is. We're lucky our hero was able to get out of it, but countless people haven't, countless people won't get effed. Like, it's a much more downtrodden, realistic message. So it came down to discussing which of those messages is more powerful. At first, we were leaning that the realistic, powerful message is more, for a film, good. But because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse chose to be an animated film, which helped it so much, it also made it slightly more aimed at children. Not that adults can't enjoy animation, but an animated movie draws in kids. And that hopeful message for kids, for us, just ever so slightly squeaked it out. So after 8 minutes, Spider-Verse went over Get Out with a 3-2 vote. Inglourious Basterds and The Dark Knight. I believe this was, yeah. So this was a good conversation. We talked about Christoph Waltz, the villain, versus Heath Ledger's Joker. We talked about the blunt force of all this, but ultimately it came down to Inglourious Basterds. Great movie. Sorry, YouTube, for cursing. It's the name of the movie. Has an amazing opening, an amazing bar sequence, an amazing dinner sequence, and an amazing ending. It's got 4 beautiful 10 out of 10 points. The rest of the movie is a little slow, though. It dips down to maybe a 7 or an 8. The Dark Knight spends its entirety at a 9 for the most part. A few little dips, a few hard spikes to 10, but ultimately it came down to the pacing of The Dark Knight and how the entirety of it is so good. Whereas there's moments in this one where you're like, come on, get back to what's going on with Christoph Waltz. We need to see it. Get us back there. When that became clear to all of us, it was actually shocking that after 8 minutes and 15 seconds of discussion, Dark Knight beat Inglourious Basterds with a 5-0 vote. Every judge said the Dark Knight should move on. And it did. Now we're in round 3. We're in the final 8 films at this point. You don't know what the other side looks like yet, but we're in the cream of the crop here. We're in the top 8 out of 32. Princess Bride and Shawshank. I put up a good... we've discussed every film ad nauseum at this point, so it really just came down to, like, quick discussions. I fought my ass off for Princess Bride. It is still one of my favorite movies. But at the end of the day, it's a fun romp, a perfectly made fun romp. But the power associated with the Shawshank Redemption, the 2 thumbs up, I mean, it's an incredible movie. Yeah, I mean, like it was so hard to. I wasn't trying to argue. I was arguing for Princess Bride, but when there's nothing to, I mean, it goes to the show. It's like how politics works, how all arguments work. It's hard to fight something perfect. I couldn't run a smear campaign here. No matter how much I loved The Princess Bride, I could only argue its amazing strengths, but there were no flaws to feast on. I couldn't say The Princess Bride did this better than The Shawshank Redemption did, because the only things The Princess Bride did better than The Shawshank Redemption are things The Shawshank Redemption didn't do. There aren't many jokes in The Shawshank Redemption for obvious reasons. The characters are almost just as strong. It might be more moving. I did my best, but after 1 minute and 40 seconds, the judges wanted the vote, and it was a 4-1 for The Shawshank Redemption. This was a round. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, The Dark Knight. This inadvertently became a fight for what is the panel's best superhero movie of all time, because the 3 real contenders were on here. Logan got knocked out by The Thing earlier, and it probably wouldn't have gotten past Shawshank even if it didn't. But we're down here in the left side of the bracket, and we've got Spider-Verse and Dark Knight. Very different movies, but also very similar. Superheroes, one's animated, one's more about kids, one's more chaos and horror. Not horror, like horror, like oh my god, I can't believe it. Not like I'm scared, but there was so much back and forth here. And ultimately, a lot of us in this moment were leaning Spider-Verse. We all came in like, I think I'm leaning Spider-Verse, I think I'm leaning Spider-Verse, I think I'm leaning Spider-Verse. And then one judge was like, well, let me really talk about The Dark Knight. And we were discussing it, and as he really got into like the characterization of the Joker, how Christian Bale's Batman is so like reprehensive of what he has to do, but he has to do it, and we really got into the Harvey Dent stuff, you could see the judges were starting to get swayed, and the Spider-Verse argument really hit its peak against Get Out, because that was like how do you not? Like, you had to go. You had to give out your best shot for Get Out. But Dark Knight, we still had more to talk about. And at the beginning of a round, which looked like I was pretty sure it was going to go Spider-Verse, it actually ended up being a 4-1 vote after 9 minutes and 45 seconds in favor of The Dark Knight. So Dark Knight moved on. We're now in the semifinals of the left side. Shawshank, Dark Knight. There was nothing rude was meant by it. But when we got to this moment, we all kind of looked at each other, and we all just said that The Shawshank Redemption was a better film. Everything that could be said about both films was already said, and we all nodded and knew that everything that was said about The Shawshank Redemption was more than what was said about The Dark Knight. So after 26 seconds, The Shawshank Redemption moved on with a 5-0 vote. All right. Rewind time. We're going back to round 1. We're young, plucky. We're still outside at this point. We haven't moved inside yet. It got hot in the afternoon. We had to move inside. We're still outside when we're talking about these two. John Wick, North by Northwest. I'm not even gonna say 2 horribly different films. They are both action thrillers. This one more action. This one more thriller. Hitchcock's a genius. I think North by Northwest is the best Hitchcock film out there. Its only competition to me is Psycho. I love them so much. I love the Cary Grant getting kind of like just thrown into a spy thriller hubbub, like what's going on? I don't even know. Really good, strong female character, but a lot of people felt that the second half of this movie kind of slowed down once he was more aware of what was going on, because you as the viewer are right there in the mess with him. Like, you don't know what's going on either. You're just kind of following him, responding to everything. And once he knew it was going on, it was kind of like, okay. Now he doesn't have to find anything out anymore. He just has to get out of it. John Wick, on the other hand, is a genre-altering film. We talked about this with action, that there was like the pre-80s action movies were just like cop shootouts, Lethal Weapon style things. Then you hit like the Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone era with your Rambo and your Terminator. That changed the game of how action films were shot. There was more buff dudes, there was more gun action, explosions. They all came in the 80s. And then you get another jump to The Matrix. The Matrix introduces, like, you know, kung fu, cool gun, woo, like all that and hubbub. And then you have like the Bourne movies with like that shaky cam action. Well, there are moments in the action genre. There are films that have defined the genre. And as a result, a lot of movies that come out around those times are copycats of him. Not in a bad way, but the inspiration is there. John Wick is one of those movies. A lot of the action movies that have come out since this film have been all those one-shot, realistic, like he's gonna reload, he's gonna get shot a lot, like real hardcore action that is spawned from John Wick. And that's incredible on its own. But on top of that, the mythos of John Wick, him being the Baba Yaga, the world he exists in, what are these tokens? What is the Continental? How does it work? The first movie does such a good job of only giving you enough to be like so intrigued, but at the end of the day, not really still know what's going on. That it's a movie with some of the best world building out there, and on top of that, it's an action movie. Action movies are kind of usually senseless with no plot, and yeah, the plot is simple. It's just he wants revenge. But they give you so many tidbits of cool background story stuff, as well as just some of the best action you'll ever see, that... Oop, gotta scroll up on the notes, because we're back in round one. Oh baby, back in round one. There we are. After 11 minutes and 47 seconds of discussion, John Wick went over North by Northwest with a 3-2 vote. Psycho and Argo, the battle of the two-syllable ending in O movies on the list. Once again, I'll share, I put Argo on the list. Argo's Best Picture winner. It's a excellent, gripping story about a true event that happened, that they had to rescue some captives, of American captives from a country, and they did it using the disguise of that they were filming a movie in that location, and that everyone was either an actor or an editor, and they used them as a team of movie makers doing a location scout to save them. I have written papers on this film. I've read the actual like 50-something page long CIA form about like what actually went down, and the film's not too far off. The only real liberties the film takes are that like the character Ben Affleck plays had a great relationship with his family, but in this movie he's like depressed and doesn't know them very well. And they upped the action a little bit, but it was all pretty true. But I acknowledged that going in. I acknowledge that I have a major bias to this film because of how much research I've done. Ben Affleck's my favorite actor. There are a lot of things this movie does for me specifically that makes me love it so much. But at the end of the day, when you're going up against Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's magnum opus, as the general public would say, a movie that defines a genre, some of the best acting by Anthony Perkins that makes you believe Norman Bates didn't do it, but then believe he is crazy. And of course, you got the double twist that you're watching this movie, and halfway through, you think they switch the main character on you. You don't even know who Norman Bates is until our lead actress, main character that we've been with for 20 minutes, winds up at his hotel as a quick pit stop on her way. And immediately, when the focus shifts you're cheering for him. His mother killed this woman, and you're cheering that he doesn't get caught and he finds a way to stay out of it. But then you have the double twist that his mother isn't actually alive. She's dead, and he's got multiple personality disorder. It's incredible. I mean, like I've already said, genre defining. Acting's incredible. The movie very rarely slows down, keeps you on the edge of its seat, and it was hard for me to. I mean, I didn't even. My argument for Argo was that it's really good, but I like it too much. Even I voted for Psycho in the end. After a mere 5 minutes, Psycho went over Argo with a 5-0 vote. Gremlins and American Beauty. I'm looking real quick. I think this is the most polarizing matchup on here. The second closest is probably Back to the Future: Silence of the Lambs. American Beauty is a well thought out movie about how everyone in America puts forward this fake front of this is who I pretend to be to make the others around me happy, when inside I am nothing like it. Gremlins is a silly movie about gremlins. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm the one that put it on the list. I think it's incredibly well made. The practical effects are fun. The movie doesn't overstay its welcome. It's got a horribly simple plot. We gotta fight the gremlins. It's got really cute puppets. The gremlins and the mogwais are cute in their own ways. I love that the gremlins aren't like murderous monsters like just about everything else is in a monster movie. The gremlins are just kind of jerks, and they just want to mess around. They kill a few people in the first one, but it's really just like bossing them around. They're smoking cigars, they're watching movies, they're singing hi ho, hi ho. It's absolutely incredible, this movie. It's so good, but for simple reasons. It's a lot of fun. That's all there is to say. A movie that delivers 10 out of 10 on fun doesn't need to deliver 10 out of 10 on acting. It doesn't need to deliver 10 out of 10 on plot. As long as you're in that chair having the best time of your life, the movie is succeeding. American Beauty is the polar opposite of Gremlins. It is the most well-constructed, one of the most well-constructed films on here, the way they explore every single character's flaws and how on the surface they're one thing, but beneath they're another. It's got that amazing angle of, in the beginning that Kevin Spacey's character dies, and the whole time you're just wondering who's going to do it. His daughter, his wife, this young high school girl he's infatuated with. There's so much to unpack with American Beauty. But American Beauty suffered from a major issue that the ruling was if you didn't see the movie, you had to watch it before we could all get together. That way everyone watched everything and had, opinions. A lot of people hadn't seen American Beauty, myself included. So they watched it for the first time over the last few months. I don't know if you keep up with the news or anything, but a movie about Kevin Spacey wanting to hook up with a high school girl has not aged well. And while I was able to separate it from that, a lot more than one judge was just a little too uncomfortable by American Beauty. And as a result, Gremlins went over 3-2 after 14 minutes and 57 seconds. The closest matchup to a 15-minute stop talking, much like Logan and Thing over here, but someone was just too uncomfortable. Someone just found it slow. And Gremlins is a fun romp you can always go back to. So Gremlins moved on to the next round. Did I click that properly? Let's try one more time. There it goes. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, the first one, and Alien. The first Pirates of the Caribbean film, incredible. An absolutely great adventure film where even though you can see Jack Sparrow's here in the front of the cover, he's an amazing supporting character to the leads of Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, aka Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, I want to say. Their character development over how like he hates pirates, she's intrigued by pirates, and at the end of the day they're both pirates. It's so incredible. Jack Sparrow's character hasn't devolved into just Johnny Depp being drunk yet. That doesn't happen Doesn't really happen to like the fourth movie, but you can start seeing it in the second movie and then the third movie, and then by the fourth movie, it's awful. But then you've also got Barbossa, who is an absolutely incredible antagonist to this movie. Yeah, he's the antagonist, but like it's not that terrible. He's not great. He's still a pirate. He does piratey things, but he is so interesting. And then of course you have the fun fantasy element of that they are an undead crew. The issues where the undead crew doesn't really hold up that much. And there were a little bit of arguments over who the main character was, but that didn't hurt the movie too much outside of the argument that if the movie's lead isn't clear, is that an issue? I didn't think so. Alien, on the other hand, very similar to The Thing, is an incredible horror movie with incredible practical effects in an even scarier setting. The Arctic is terrifying, but at the end of the day, they're trying to get to this vehicle that they can use to drive away. In Alien, you literally cannot escape. In space, no one can hear you scream is such a good tagline. It's true. You can't do anything. You can't get to the escape pod. Ripley had to kill the alien. That was the only way to survive. And you're so invested in what she's doing that just like how you're invested in Mac in The Thing. This main character, it's like a ride or die. You're with them the whole time. It's a genre-defining film. It's probably the first really good horror movie to use sci-fi elements to boost the horror. Of course, it is a sci-fi movie, but it's a horror movie first that uses the combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell to elevate it. Like, it's incredible how just a quick, like, yeah, we'll throw them in a spaceship. It's all you need. Because how do you escape a spaceship? You can't. It's incredible. And after a discussion of 13 minutes and 12 seconds, it was close, but Alien went over Pirates 3-2. No Country for Old Men and Jurassic Park. Very different movies. You've got another neo-western. You've got Javier Bardem playing probably one of the best chaotic characters ever, who just walks around flipping coins and is like, hey, if you lose this coin flip, you're gonna die. But you've also got like the classy way of like, it's a great Coen Brothers film. You've got small little details, like how he doesn't like getting blood on his shoes. You have small things that the whole movie can hinge on, that you're focusing on. And the movie does things so well. They can kill main characters off screen and it still affects you. They can do such gripping things that the movie goes through. It's incredible. If you haven't seen this movie, you gotta see it. Jurassic Park, I'm sure you've seen. Most humans have. Jurassic Park, I mean, if it hasn't been clear so far between The Thing and Alien and Gremlins, I love practical effects. And Jurassic Park is probably the king of practical effects. The CGI mixed with the practical effects in this movie hold up to this day. It's an incredibly simple yet perfectly executed story of what if the greed of humans got to the point of literally resurrecting apex predators to the point where it literally ends up biting them in the ass. Literally biting them in the ass. It's so good. Every character in this movie is a gem. Sam Neill's development with the kids is great. They're both, they're such different movies, but they really are two character-driven survival films. One of them is, can we survive and capture this fugitive who's going around murdering people? And the other one is about dinosaurs. I don't mean that as a discredit to Jurassic Park, because after 8 minutes and 54 seconds, Jurassic Park went over No Country in a vote of 3-2. This was an interesting round. One of the judges, who the one who literally went to Hollywood to become a director and do all of this, these were his top two. These were literally his favorite film and his second favorite film, Jaws and The Graduate, respectively. And they happened to get randomly paired against each other. So he had a lot to say about this round, and I'm going to repeat it. Jaws, a technical marvel. A young Steven Spielberg had no idea what he was doing and basically accidentally made one of the greatest films of all time. the suspense that the shark gives, the relationship between our three main characters hunting the shark, the greed of the mayor not wanting to close the beaches, the fact that they take no holds barred killing kids. This is a scary movie that has, first of all, it basically honed and coined a shot. The like, oh no, a shark's coming shot. That's from Jaws, and it's been used in literally it's been used in every shark movie since. But it's also used in a lot of like anything with like a creature, like that creature perspective. Jaws did that first. And it's incredible that they did it all in the water. The Graduate is such a different movie. It is a very specifically made film about how rebelling against what people think is best for you, which always works out for the most part in movies, doesn't always work out. Obviously, I'm not saying you should lie down for like oppressors, but this is a movie that shows that they're both wrong. You gotta find a healthy medium. You can't just go against everything your parents say, because they might be trying to help you and they're doing it in a poor way, but you're not always gonna end up on top carving your own path. He makes mistakes. He marries the girl, and as a result, she's gonna end up just like his mother. But it's also like with a serious message like that, it's so playful. There's so much fun in this movie that Dustin Hoffman, it's really all Dustin Hoffman bringing it to this portrayal of this character. He's so playfully awkward. In the scene where he's being seduced by Mrs. Robinson, he's still like, oh geez, oh Jesus, let me go, please. It's so good. Ryan, didn't mean to name drop one of the judges there. It's not enough for you. You don't know who. There's too many Ryans in this world. The judge who loved both of these movies, he voted for Jaws, and it was a situation where no one outside of me and the judge, known as Ryan, had seen The Graduate, and they all recently watched it, and they all kind of fell in love with it. So, with a vote of 3-2, The Graduate actually ended up going over Jaws because of how much the particular panel we had just absolutely adored this film. Next up is space. You got Empire Strikes Back and Arrival. Two sci-fi movies. Both are a lot of fun. Arrival is a very specifically made, they're using the sci-fi trope of time being one thing. It's hard to explain. And if you've seen Arrival, you know why it's hard to explain. But basically, there's great acting in it, and there is the plot point of that our main character sees time like the aliens do, all at once, like a painting, all of time. And she's choosing to hone it at particular times that are great, and it leads to her making some selfish decisions, and it's pretty good. It could have been explained a little better, we all agreed. But it's a great film. It's a great sci-fi film. It's a little confusing, but the message is, it was very well done. For what it was trying to do, it did a good job. Empire, it's a Star Wars movie. It's got like, I mean, the Darth Vader twist is one of the biggest twists of all time. You've got some good development for a lot of characters. The only issue is, and this is the only one that kind of got in here, this is a movie that as a sequel doesn't stand on its own. You don't know that Han Solo is a scoundrel and that he's starting to become good and fall in love with Leia. They could have known each other for 5 years if you haven't seen the first one. You don't know why some people are fighting. It's great. It's the best Star Wars movie, probably bar none. But at the end of the day, in its own, in a vacuum, it might be incredible. But a movie that can't exist without other movies can't be the best movie of all time. So, after a 9-minute and 23-minute discussion, Jaws vs. The Graduate was 10 minutes, by the way. I don't think I mentioned it. Arrival did go over with a 3-2 vote. The final matchup of round 1 was Spotlight versus The Truman Show. Very different films. Jim Carrey's The Truman Show is a character-driven. I'm not gonna call it a comedy, even though it's got Jim Carrey in it. It's a drama about a man basically having a crisis when he finds out his entire life is a TV show. And this is like not as much as The Matrix, but this is like a beautiful conspiracy theorist film that like you can believe that your entire like your actions aren't your own, and everything happening is done by someone. And that movie plays it off so well, and it's done so well. It's got an iconic ending. It's a great movie. Spotlight, however, Academy Award winner. It's about one of the most horrific events in all of history. It was about the discovery of the fact that the Catholic Church did some unsavory things with children, which is it's the way they choose to tell the story is incredible. Because you could have just made a movie about a kid who goes to church and bad things happen, right? But we're getting the news side of it, like how a news team uncovered how buried it had been, how when people tried to say stuff they couldn't. And the acting is incredible. Mark Ruffalo's acting in this movie is absolutely incredible. So as far as the other characters, it's so well done. It's very good. I can't say much more than that. Oh no, what did I do? I fixed it. Yeah. So basically what I was saying was Spotlight's incredible. So is The Truman Show. But Spotlight is about just a much more visceral, real thing that happens as a result. The emotions it invokes in the viewer are just not the same as what happens in The Truman Show. So after 8 minutes and 35 seconds and a 3-2 vote, Spotlight went over The Truman Show. Now for round 2 on this side, all right, I just gotta scroll a little. We started with John Wick and Psycho. This is one of the more unique matchups because they're two movies that altered an entire genre. You got a recent alteration of John Wick that has had multiple sequels, multiple movies that are just like it, and it's incredible, versus Psycho, which did the same thing for horror, but way longer ago. And the fact that this movie holds up just as well as John Wick did kind of served it a lot here. We discussed all the incredible moments in John Wick and how John Wick kind of is like a non-stop good time. And Psycho has its slow moments, but its slow moments always had a payoff, you know? Like you can go back and go, wait, that was the moment that I should have realized it, but I didn't. And it's so expertly crafted by Hitchcock. And the only real negative that was brought up about Psycho is that it kind of pan feeds you the ending. Like there's a 5-minute sequence where the doctor explains that he has multiple personality disorder and that the mother actually wasn't real. Like they kind of insult the audience's intelligence by going like, I know you just watched the whole movie, but just in case you didn't, the mom wasn't actually there. It was Norman Bates. He was pretending to be the mom because he's crazy. But again, that's a 5-minute thing that may have actually been forced on Hitchcock by the studio. So we tried not to hold that against Psycho too hard. And after 7 minutes and 37 seconds, we voted, and Psycho went over John Wick with a 3-2 vote. Alien versus Gremlins. Bad matchup for Gremlins. This is where the romp ends. Alien is a literal, you can't argue the practical effects goodness of Gremlins because Alien's also got great practical effects. And this is actually a very well constructed story with amazing characters and everything that Gremlins didn't need, Aliens has. And then Alien also does the rest of the stuff, like the thriller element. Obviously it's not as fun as Gremlins, but it was a 55-second discussion. It was a 5-0 vote. Alien went over Gremlins. Jurassic Park and The Graduate. Back at it again with circles on a black background. Wildly different films. The Graduate, like we said, is an amazing, fun romp, but it's also like a very powerful story with an amazing soundtrack. You got all these Simon and Garfunkel songs that play just the right times to show how he's feeling. Incredible stuff. Jurassic Park You've got, I mean, probably one of the most famous scores of all time with that dun 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 dun. I'd play it, but YouTube would kill me. So like music's basically on par for these movies. But at the end of the day, we were discussing it. Like Jurassic Park just has such an impact on so many things because of its practical effects, use of CG, the way that the characters develop over the story. It was close, but after 9 minutes and 30 seconds, Jurassic Park won with a 3-2 vote. Arrival and Spotlight. Two great films, very similar release times, but we all kind of knew at this point which one we thought was more powerful. We cleared it up in like 2 minutes and 25 seconds. But you've got a sci-fi movie that's really good but doesn't do everything perfectly versus a amazing true story that unfolds in such a way that you're as sickened as the world probably was when it came out for real. It was easy. It was after 2 minutes, it was a 5-0 in favor of Spotlight. Back to the top. We're in the we're in the top 8 right now, but on the right side. Psycho and Alien. This was interesting. This was, I expected this to be a long argument about like old horror versus new horror, but we kind of all got into a groove really quickly that as incredible as Psycho is, and we're thankful that it paved the way for something like Alien. Alien's just incredible. Alien is a perfected horror movie that this movie helped make. You don't have any of those pan-feeding moments that older movies have. It's just a perfect horror movie that's terrifying the whole time, as I'm sure Hitchcock would love. And it only took 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Haha, nice. But it was another 5-0 vote, and it was in favor of Alien. Jurassic Park and Spotlight. This one was another one that we kind of all looked at each other and knew. At least what we thought going in, right? Everyone was like, obviously Jurassic Park is gonna, like, I mean, it's such a historic film that's got such a wide reach. That was a thing that was brought up here. It was brought up for the first time in this round, that Jurassic Park is so easy to watch. Anyone could watch it. My little brother could watch it, my grandpa could watch it, and they would love Jurassic Park. Spotlight, it's a movie that gains a lot from being based on a real, true, horrifying thing, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't do what Jurassic Park does. It doesn't blow the doors down. And there was some good arguments made for Spotlight. It kind of came in looking like it was going to be a 4-1 for Spotlight. But that person who loves Spotlight really, they drove home all the great things it can do. And that is a shame that we live in a society where a movie about something like this can't be, like, beloved forever, like dinosaurs can. But at the end of the day, it's because it's a horrifying, it's a horrible thing that happened here. And the movie putting a spotlight on it, no pun intended, is incredible. But this movie literally, like there are people who wanted to like become archaeologists, paleontologists. Like, this movie can just have an impact on everyone, and this movie can't. They can both have incredible impacts, but again, like, this one just does it more. So he was able to sway one person, but at the end of the day, after 2 minutes and 30 seconds of discussion, it was a 3-2 vote in favor of Jurassic Park. Now we're in the final four of the right side. Only one of these films can go on to face The Shawshank Redemption. It was Alien and Jurassic Park. It was an incredible matchup. It was tough because it's amazing practical effects and CGI, hoping our characters survive it. But where this Aliens gives up a little bit of its character work to focus on the real horror, whereas Jurassic Park isn't a horror movie. It doesn't focus on those things. It really focuses on the relationships between the characters and loving all of them. And at the end of the day, even though these two films are so prolific and are probably both of them singularly more important to film history than Shawshank or maybe any other movie on this list, only one of them could go on. And we all knew that only one of these films had a chance against Shawshank. And as much as we all loved Alien, after 8 minutes and 20 seconds, it was a 5-0 vote in favor of Jurassic Park. Here we are. The final two movies to decide what is the greatest movie of all time. Both of these movies have 5-0s under their belt at this point. Everything that can be said about every movie has been said already. They're both 10 out of 10s. They're both absolutely perfect. Every intentional moment in them, from the acting to the score to the casting to the deaths, everything about them is perfect. It's flawless. You cannot find a flaw in either one of these movies. So we kind of had to reach a little bit around the movies. It was when it's something that wasn't discussed earlier because it never needed to be. All these movies are like 8s, 9s, 10s out of 10. And when you're comparing a 9 to an 8 or a 10 to a 9, you know which one wins because it's numerical. But when you're comparing a 10 to a 10, we had to find some reason to boast one over the other. And it came down to a very similar thing that Jurassic Park and Spotlight came down to, was that when we're picking the greatest movie of all time, right? We are, at the end of the day, we're 5 film buffs, some with degrees in film, some who lived in Hollywood, some who had podcasts. We are obviously the right people to be discussing it to a degree. Obviously, we're not we're like the best 5 people in the world. We're 5 guys on an island, but we had to realize that when picking the greatest movie of all time, it's not just for us, you know. It's got to be for, like, when people come up to us on the street and go, "What do you think the greatest film of all time is?" We need to be able to tell them, and then no matter who asks us that question, be like, "And you should go watch it." And we didn't all agree on it. It was another, I believe it was another 3-2 vote. It took 20 minutes, undoubtedly the longest discussion we had. We talked about every element of the film again, as much as we could. But at the end of the day, Jurassic Park influences so many people in the way it's made, between the CGI and the practical effects, the characters that are developed, the way it impacts film as a whole, did more than Shawshank. Well, that's not, people were trying to argue that's not a merit of the film, but it is, because if the film wasn't good enough to do that, it wouldn't impact people. It wouldn't. I'm not saying Shawshank doesn't impact anybody. I'm sure it absolutely does. It's an incredible story. But there's just something about Jurassic Park that can impact every single person. I can't, and I'm not saying every movie needs to be able to be seen by a kid, but I can show this to a kid and they'll get it. I can't show this to some adults and they'll get it. Some people will look at this and be like, I don't even get what the meaning of the story is. This movie is so specific and simple that every single person that sees this will get what it was about. They will have loved it. They will think it's perfect. And then on top of all of that, the impact it had on film, the impact it had on practical effects, on CGI, it does more. So with a 2-3 vote, Jurassic Park is what we all landed on. What are you doing? Get out of here, you. We landed on Jurassic Park. Uh-oh, now they're all Jurassic Park. How'd I do that? Everything's Jurassic Park now. We agreed that Jurassic Park was the greatest film of all time. No one was mad. We all knew coming into this there would only be one movie that could be the greatest film of all time. And at the end of the day, it was Jurassic Park. The movie, I mean, I just explained all the reasons. Feel free to agree or disagree. But I'm sorry, I'm getting so caught up in trying to make every single thing Jurassic Park. Which I shouldn't be doing. It's probably ruining everything. But yeah, Jurassic Park, at the end of the day, won. And don't get it twisted. We're not a bunch of people who are just like, oh boy, dinosaurs. But you can't even get rid of that fact. Oh boy, dinosaurs is, I mean, like, they knew what they were doing when they made the movie. Oh boy, dinosaurs is a very important part of the movie, but the movie has does so many other things that people tend to overlook. It's a perfect movie. We've crowned it the greatest film of all time. And obviously, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it highly. Now more than ever, I want comments, guys. I really want to know what you guys thought of this tournament. The movies, like start off with like movies we didn't even include. There are movies that we didn't get that didn't make the top 32 to even make it in the bracket. Talk about those. Talk about how you would have done the bracket. Obviously, there's going to be a link to your very own bracket in the description if you wanted to do it yourselves. Let me know what you think of all of this. We had a lot of fun, me and the guys. We're gonna do it again. How are we gonna do it again? Obviously, we just did it. We're gonna do genres, maybe. We'll do actors, maybe. We're gonna find a way to do another greatest of tournament. We might do comedy movies next, because as a result of their genre, comedies didn't really see any. There were no real hardcore comedies on this list because they're comedies. So that might be the next way to go. But please, yeah, tell me what you thought. Please like, please comment. I want to know what everyone's thinking about the movies at home. This has been a lot of fun. We wanted to record it, like everyone's discussions, and I was gonna post that, but it would have been 8 hours long. So I figured a retelling of what happened, telling you guys the votes and the time it took to reach them. I hope that was good enough. If you guys love this, if you guys absolutely love this and you really would have liked to have heard everyone's independent thoughts and you don't care how long it would have been, please let me know. Maybe we'll try and record the next one and I'll upload it in parts. We'll figure something out. But thank you so much. I've been Wonder Bear. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. I want to know what you think about movies. Movies are my favorite thing in the world. I'm going to do more things like this. I'm probably going to start making videos that are just talking about how good movies are and recommending movies and rating movies and etc. Something I've always wanted to do. So please tell me what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye.